The blizzard of 2022 resulted in dozens of deaths, which officials here in Western New York say could have been prevented, possibly with better notification.
Congressman Nick Langworthy is introducing federal changes to make that happen. He joins us here now to talk about that. Congressman, thank you so much for coming in this afternoon.
Thank you for having me back.
So we are talking about the WARN Act right now. For those who don't know, tell us about this piece of legislation.
So this piece of legislation, I entered this shortly after I came to Congress, because after the blizzard of 22, Winter Storm Elliott, we lost so many of our friends and neighbors in that storm. And then even regionally, it splits as to how this is done. We need a federal uniform standard on this, and what this bill would do is impanel a nationwide study to create that standard so that we can codify and tell states how best to inform people in case of impending disasters, natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, or blizzards in our case. And, we just have a great reminder of that just this week with the terrible snows that we've experienced so far. It's important that people know what routes are closed, when to stay home, and when to stay out of these terrible weather events so they can stay safe.
I imagine these notifications will come in a variety of ways, but most commonly, I would assume maybe a text to a cell phone or an email or something like that. How does that work? And then also, what is the timing of this? When can folks expect to maybe start seeing these notifications?
Well, this bill passed the House this week, and what it does is basically it calls on the federal government to create a standard. So this is not this gets the bureaucracy ready to make a rule as to what will work with the states and how to create that federal standard. We expect some action hopefully in the Senate next week, and hopefully this will get signed into law before the end of the year. We've got a lot of support. Senator Ted Cruz on the Republican side in the Senate is moving to hotline this bill, and hopefully we'll get that companion legislation through the Senate.
Yeah.
You talk about creating the standard. To piggyback off of that, the way people get their information changes, and a big part of this is studying it, keeping it modernized. Why is that so important?
Well, technology is moving so fast. I mean, with AI really changing the game almost every single day, iPhones are kind of taken for granted now on a smartphone, but we still have a lot of our constituents that aren't in great cell phone coverage areas. I mean, we still have a lot of seniors using a flip phone. I mean, there's got to be ways to reach everybody, and the landline is becoming a thing of the past, unfortunately. But there are still people that rely on that. So we have to have a strategy, an all of the above strategy, to make sure that information gets spread everywhere. And, we have a variety of ways. I mean, you guys do a great job, with local news coverage, but there's a lot of people getting their information in different ways. And we have to analyze all of that, making sure that there's a comprehensive strategy to keep as many people safe as possible.
Filling in any of the existing gaps that exist out there, for sure. If we could switch gears, as we announced at the top, today it was announced that you were named to the Energy and Commerce Committee, one of, if not the most powerful or influential committees on the Hill. Talk a little bit about your desire to be a member of this committee, and also what you think you can do with that newfound power and bring it back to Western New York.
Absolutely. This is a committee that when I started running for Congress, I said I would like to ultimately serve on this committee. And we got there pretty fast, one term in. This committee has the broadest jurisdiction of any committee in the House of Representatives. It has all of energy policy for the country, all of healthcare policy for the country, as well as all of telecommunications, and there's several other smaller jurisdictions that it covers. So we have not had a Republican member of this committee since Chris Collins left Congress in 2018.
Oh, wow.
We have been without a voice for New York State, and we lead the way in many of these issues. We also are, unfortunately, victims of many Green New Deal policies that have become law in New York. So having this platform to push back against some of these needless regulations, finding federal workarounds around some of the very poorly thought out ideas that Albany has made into law, I think is critical. And I'm going to use that platform to fight for our constituents here in Western New York for common sense. As I've dug into the committee and as I've continued to represent my district, many of the hospitals are on the verge of bankruptcy. We have a healthcare crisis, especially a rural healthcare delivery crisis in this state, and we need to get to work on that. And I do believe that this is going to be an era of common sense governance coming into Washington in January, and this committee will be at the absolute forefront of that. So I'm looking forward to having a seat at that table.
You talk about being kind of a pushback against some of the state regulations or state rules that cost taxpayers money. I think about things like state taxes on everything from stuff we buy to gasoline or to what have you. What can you do, or what can the committee, or even I don't know, anyone, legislators at the national level, to impact that kind of stuff at the state level?
Well, let's look at just energy, for instance. When I would meet with my colleagues to try to get a seat on this committee, I would tell them it is now law in the state of New York that from January 1st, 2026 on, you could no longer build a home in New York State with a natural gas hookup in our climate. That's idiotic. But our state legislature and our governor have made that law. I mean,
so
we need energy
choice.
Yeah. There are preemption measures, and we're looking into them. I mean, it's unfair for New York taxpayers that their only saving grace is when people file lawsuits to get around terrible law. So we're going to look for any federal workarounds we can to really alleviate burdens from taxpayers so that they have a choice in their energy needs as well as their health care needs.
One more topic, if we can, before we let you go. A big priority of yours has always been military or veterans and service members. There's a recent vote to support higher pay and to strengthen really the military. Tell us a little bit about that vote.
Well, every year we have to pass what they call the NDA, the National Defense Authorization Act, and it's really gives the full authorization for the appropriations for our military. We spend just under $1 trillion every year on our national defense. But one of those key ingredients to keep our recruitment where it needs to be, and also to say thank you to the men and women in uniform that are doing the job every single day. They're away from their homes. They're deployed around the world. We have a pay increase of 14.5% there. And this was a bipartisan arrangement. This is the Senate and the House coming together, final law, and it's necessary. We have to keep up. We need to have the most lethal, powerful fighting force the world has ever known to keep our country safe and to promote peace around the world. And I think this will go a long step to doing it. And plus, it's showing the gratitude of a grateful nation to those men and women making that sacrifice.
Congressman Nick Langworthy, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it back in the district when you're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.